Let me be clear about what this is. At the end of this video, you will have a ready-to-rock, fun 3D game that you made yourself. A little bit of coding, a little bit of manipulation of physics, and different assets. It will be ready to go. All of this stuff, all of the code, all of the assets, all of the characters, all of that, it's free, it's in the description, it's linked, ready to be used. And what you're seeing behind me is that used, I guess, is that game. This is what we're building. If you enjoy it, if you're having fun with it, I do have a couple more videos adding a few features, but again, a ready-to-go game into one video, whether you're new to Unity or an old hat, let's get building. Let's make something fast that's still fun. Let's dive right in. Here we are in Unity, and I think a good place to start would be a project name. I'm going to go block go, because duh, why not? I just said duh, that's disgusting. And 3D. We're making a block maze go game of awesomeness in 3D. I'm going to now hit create. And quapow. Let me go ahead and full screen this. Looks good, right? Our standard mode here. We got our camera, our directional light, and let's add our ground. So game object, 3D, cube. Boom, here is our handsome little ground. And we want it scale-wise, 40 for X and a 40 for Z. Let me go ahead and zoom out. Now, with the lighting, let's go ahead. We want to make sure to go to Window, Rendering, Light Settings, and we want this auto-generated. It will just save us some time. So I'm going to go ahead and click right there. Boom. You might have to click Generate, and there we are. I'm also going to have for the main camera, instead of skybox, let's just have a solid color background, and obviously totally up to you, right? Right now it's this blue color. I'm going to go with just kind of a light grayish for now. If I hate it or you hate it, we'll change it later. All right. Let's rename this ground. And we also want, it is the ground. Let me hit enter so that sticks. We want a rigid body on it. So component, rigid body, right here. Perfect. And what you want to make sure is to mark it as kinetic, right? It is the ground. We don't need it moving around. We just need it sitting there for us. Now, the player I'm going to use, the asset I'm going to use is something I did in Blender. It's a simple, fun little block. You could also just right click and do 3D object cube as well. But this is linked and the assets are linked in the description. So is the code. So import new asset. I creatively named my character player cube and import. There we are. And drop right here. Let's go ahead and I'm going to want the cube to be over in the corner for a starting position. So I might as well place there already. And Y should be able to be, yep, 1.5. And then for Z, let's try -14 maybe. Let's see what we got. We want it near the edge. Yeah, that looks like a good starting point. We might be able to, I'm going to do -14. And then positioning wise, so -90 is good. Let's go ahead and click on our, and see what we got. So this should be the back of the player. So we need this to be -90. There we are. And 100, 100, 100 is good. Now let's make sure we want a box collider and a rigid body for our player. So I'm going to put rigid body. And we want to freeze 2 of the rotations, otherwise our player kind of goes crazy, and that's going to be the X and the Y rotation. The rest of this can stay the same. Let's zero out drag. And now we need a collider. Boom. Collider. And this should all be fine. Awesome. And now we need walls for our maze. It's not much of a maze without, wait, I want to rename this layer. All right. It's not much of a maze without walls. So for that, we're going to do create 3D cube again. Okay. And itty bitty, it's even hard to see. That is fine for now because we're going to fix that. Let's make it 39 for X, which goes almost the entire length. And then 1 and 1 is great. And to get it into position, we're going to do 19 for Z. Now it's hard to see, so let's add a material. I can right click here and add a material this way, right? So right click, create. Another way of adding a material would be to go up to an assets and then create and material. Both ways work. There's just a little quick demonstration of those ways. And then this is going to be the wall material. So I'm going to call it wall material. And this is going to be the color we want the wall. So I actually have a color picked out that I like. You can use mine or pick your own, of course. My hex for my color, which is kind of an orangish color, is D5A330 is the color I was really liking. All right. And then while I'm doing this, I'm going to create a color for my exit pad. So I can right click this and just do duplicate if I want as well. Another way to quickly get what you need. Oh, it's not popping up. So you can right click, you can regular click and hit Control D. There we are. And so this one I'm going to rename exit material. And for this one, I also picked it out. It's kind of a purplish color. My hex for that is A33D5, 0D5. There we are. All right, now let's go back to our cube here, which I'm going to rename wall 1. Click, and I'm going to drop our material on it. And we already have the box collider here by default, which is perfect. Let's take a quick look. I'm going to click Z here. Oh, yep. So it's inside of the wall. That's not what we want, or inside the ground. I pulled it up a little bit, but what should be perfect is a 1 there for Y. Great. All right. And with that all settled, collider, yep. Okay, let's make a prefab. We could also just duplicate this. It is somewhat up to you. So I could pull it down for a prefab. I'm gonna actually just duplicate it. So for that, there's wall 1, and I'm gonna do negative. I could rename these if I want. I'm not super worried about it. I can leave this as negative actually and do 90. And by leave this as negative, I mean make that 0 and make X negative 19 for this wall. Duplicate that, and instead of negative 19, we need it on the other side, and there we are. We also want internal walls, right? So the player has to navigate around them. So I'm just going to, again, duplicate that wall, and let's make it smaller, maybe 28, and I'm thinking negative 4. So I have 6.5 for position, 1 and negative 4.5, and then a 28 for length was looking good to me. I'm going to duplicate this and do one more internal wall, except now it's going to be negative and positive, making the player have to go back and forth. And with that set, we want one more itty bitty wall. So I'm going to right click and duplicate. And this is going to be to kind of block the finish line, if you will. So let me set this negative 10 and 0 this out. Maybe a 7. And then we want it pulled back down near where we'll place the exit. So 11's good. And now let's go ahead and make that exit panel as well. So now I'm just going to do create object cube. And I'm going to call this exit panel. And this is the one I'm going to make purple. And for our exit panel, ooh, I guess I flip-flop the colors on the wall and the exit panel. Nope, I want to fix it. So I'm gonna click and shift and whoop and whoop. There we are. That's what I wanted. Perfect. So I just highlighted all of that. Now the exit pane is going to be purple. Obviously, pick the colors you want. All right, exit pane. What I was thinking, negative 12.8, negative 1.2, 15.6. And we can't see it yet, which is fine, because we need to resize. Oh, we got the edge of it. Oh, and looks like I need to flip that. And let's actually just do a 1 here, and then we can do a 90 here. See what this is like. I'm going to go to this view. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm going to right click to look, and then I'm going to use my grabber. And notice that we are a bub. So let's either scale down and then push down, right? Obviously that's way too much. That's going to be too much. So maybe 2. You just want to finagle with this a bit. You want it just barely peeking out. So maybe 0.6. Oh, actually 1's looking perfect. All right, so let's look from the top just to make sure. We can do a little bit more, maybe a 1.1, to ensure that our exit plane is sticking through. This is looking great. Let's go ahead now and camera. Yep, let's start adding code. So I'm headed to player, and we're going to do a script. I like being clear about my script, so I'm going to say player script for the title, and new, and create. And we could organize this. I like to. It's a good habit to get into scripts. And ta-da! So let's start with player movement. Pretty good place to start. I'm going to go and we'll need to update, but I can get rid of this. And we're going to require a few things to move our player around. It's easier just to do a public rigid body. There's other ways to do this, but I'm going to make it public so we can just grab the rigid body, the player, and the inspector. I could also do it on start, but if you're just starting up with Unity, this is definitely easier and gets the job done. Okay, I'm going to do this move force, and this is going to be how fast, we're moving. You might want to change this a bit, but for now I would just set it to 50, and I'm going to make it a float. Okay, and that's all fine for now. We will need to grab the main camera, so let's go ahead and put that here. Script. Yeah. So we're going to actually need the script, which I should have. We'll write that script in a second, so I'm just going to do / to comment it out so it doesn't yell at us. All right. Now for update, I would recommend normally that in update you use a Boolean value to keep track of whether something's moving or not. And then in fixed update, which looks just like this, we would do movement because this moves perfectly regularly at a cycle, and we would just check whether this is true or false if the key is down. For something like this, a simple game, let's not worry ourselves with that. Let's just dive in. So this is going to be an if statement, and we're going to look at keys. I'm going to start typing some of it in, and then I'll talk about it. That's that. And then we're going to use some camera movement in a second. Let me go ahead and do down. Watch what I'm about to do, though. I'm going to highlight it all, right-click it, copy it, enter, right-click, and paste. Because the only difference for down, if get key down, and then we want move force in that situation just to be negative, so they can travel downward. Now, what this does, if input get key down or get key up, what that returns is true or false. So if the key up, right? So if key up is currently being held down, what's going to happen? Well, it's going to grab the rigid body, which we added to our player. It's the body. It's the, what Unity is going to use is like the physical body of the object. We're going to slap some force on that. Okay. We don't need to worry about these first two. Where we want to be concerning ourselves is along the z-axis and then the actual mode of the force. So move force, why this is time delta time. What I'm doing there is saying, well, how long, right? What is the difference in time that this has been pressed? Because if it is 14 seconds, which is crazy, or 10 seconds like that, we wouldn't want to just move it 50, right? We wouldn't apply a force of 50. We would want to apply 50 times 10. So that's why time is there. Now, you'll notice right and left look very similar. So I am again going to just do a right-click copy. I'm going to hit enter and a right-click paste. Scroll down a bit. And I'm going to put them right and up and fix this up. I'll talk about it then. So for these, where do we want the force? Well, we're going to want force on X, right? Negative or positive to move right and left. We don't want to worry about Y, Z. And then our force mode is going to be the same. We want to be changing up that velocity. This is looking pretty good. I'm going to scroll to the top here. Let's hit save and test this out. So I'm going to just shrink that down. Let me grab this. I'm going to shrink this down a bit too. Now, before we can test, before it would actually work, we want to make sure to use it in spec mode. So player, and I'm just going to shrink that. Here we are, rigid. So what we're going to do is drag our player over and drop. There we go. And that looks good. Let's go ahead and give this a try. Play. And there we are. So our camera's a bit out of place, but if you want to see it, oh, we need screen up too. Okay. Let's try. There we go. So what's next then is getting our camera to, well, cooperate. All right. Let's do that. I'm headed back to, did I reset all of this? Let me put this back how it was. And that's looking Great. Go over here and go zoop. What we're going to be working on now is this main camera script because we need the camera to actually follow the player. So I'm going to uncomment that and hit save. Computer's going to be mad at me. Shrink that down. Head over to main camera. Add component. Camera script. Boom, and create. All I want to do now is go ahead and organize just a hair. Zoop. And there we go. We want the camera to shift position to follow the player. We're going to have it do it rapidly. It adds a bit of a challenge, a bit of a quirk to our game, and it allows us to make this game within a reasonable time span. All right, so what variables do we need? And the transform is the component that is involved with the movement and positioning of the player. Vector 3, you can think of the literal coordinates or position of an object. Okay, so we got the vector 3 offset because we are going to make it so that we are offset a particular amount from the player at all times. And then what do we want on update? Well, on update, we want to make sure that we adjust our camera to be next to or near the player. And what that would be equal to is transform.position. Again, transform here is not the player's transform, it is the camera's. This is the camera script. But we're setting that equal to the player's transform position plus whatever difference, plus that little bit of an offset that we're going to set. And we're going to set that in inspect because it's easier to see that way and we can make adjustments. All right, now we also need a function which I called set direction. So it's public because the player script will also be using this. Oop, and we should capitalize. It's just good form in Unity, good grammar. All right, so we're going to need a temporary vector, and then we need to be aware of up, down, left, right for this function. Let me get some of this code in, and I'll go over it. Okay. So here we go. When the vector is set to, the direction is set to up, what happens? Well, our offset is changing to a bit of a new direction. We're going to be messing with negatives and positives. I'm going to add another 3 actually real quick and keep going. Public here, again, it will allow us to see this and then inspect. But notice we're setting it up here. So this could definitely be private. But if you want to play around with where your camera is, that's one of the reasons you would need that to be public. But once you're done, you might set it to private. Let's get in this other part and else, and I'm going to use some copy paste. Okay, and there's down. Here's the angles too. That's why we have this. Euler angles is just the rotation of the object as a whole. They get real complicated, but trust me on that. And let me just copy and paste this. Control C. Control V. There we go. Else if. Left and right. Now, if we're going to the left, we need this to be a negative 90-degree angle. We want it to be 4, 1, and 0. Nothing needs to happen to Z. And then to the right would be 0 there and negative 4 for X. And perfect. Now we want to, now that we got the right Y angle, right? We did this rotation thing and then we said, hey, depending on up, down, left, right, we're going to set it to this degrees. So now that we have set Y in this angle right here, this temporary angle, we want to apply that to our player object to make sure they're still facing where the camera is facing, not apply it to the camera so the camera's facing the correct way. And there we are. So what this will do is it's going to push our camera, so offset, new vector 3. We now have a new area that we expect our camera to be in. Well, we have a new offset that we expect our camera to follow along with. What is this? When does this get applied? It gets applied here. Remember, so the camera is going to go to the player position, and depending on if they're up, down, left, right key, it will move to that appropriate spot. So that means we control the camera as well as the player. When the player hits left on the keyboard, the camera will be looking from the right side so that you can see. And it jumps around a bit, giving an added challenge to our game. Now, this will never happen if we never use set direction. We have to call this function somewhere. So where we do that is in the player script. We're going to use this camera script, main camera, okay, camera script, main camera, and we need to call it. So I'm going to do right under this, main camera dot, what do we want to call? Set direction. And I'm going to use the word up because that's what our if statement was. Now I need to do it for all of these. And there we go. We're setting the appropriate direction each time. Keep in mind, like right and right, when we set the camera to be in the right direction, so when I hit right key, what happens? The computer says, oh, input, right, okay. And by the way, these aren't else statements because that way they could move diagonally if they want to hit both keys at the same time. So if I hit right key, the computer says, okay, I'm going to add this force, cool. And then what? Oh, I need to set my direction right. What's that? Oh, main camera script. Got it. And set direction right. So I'm going to say set direction. I'm going to slap right in here. Right. Nope. Oh, there I am. And so then it grabs this data and uses that. That's how it's actually getting executed. And the camera would move to the left side so I could see the direction the player is moving in. Let's make sure to save. Ta-da. Okay, and something I noticed was this. Notice -90 for left. We definitely want, I guess I didn't replace this, we want 90 for right. Okay, it would be the opposite of those. That's looking good. Yep, we want this public so we can mess with that. That's all good. And let's, again, save everything and take a look at all of this. Here I am in Unity. Let's see, we're going to need to add, yep, there's our main camera. Keep in mind, too, when I drag this over, remember, this is the script, but Unity knows when I drag over the main camera to grab the script from it, because that's how we defined it in the code. Now, if I head over to main camera, I'm going to get a few options. First, we need the player. Yep. And now this offset. So if we don't define this, when I hit run, the camera will be like in the player. It will have the exact same position. And to prevent that, we're going to just set this offset to be equal to whatever we did here, right? So this is what I'm going to use, because at first we want to be facing forward. So 0, 1, and -5. We should give that a shot. 0, 1, -5. And there we are. All right. And now let's give the game a try. Zoom. And to the left. Ooh. And to the right. And they both work, and to the left, and back. And again, it's kind of a quirky game. Notice you can only see if you hit that direction. Oh, that's awesome. Go! And we made it to the finish line! Hurrah! I'm really proud, by the way, of Mr. Blocky. I could lower the friction on the walls, but I want to add it actually so the player loses when they hit the wall. So you have an awesome game, obviously, ready to rock, ready to brag about, show off to people. It's fun. However, in the next video, if you're interested, I'm going to make it so when the player hits the walls, game over. When they hit this exit pad right here, they are going to be speeding up. They'll go to the start point again and they'll go a little bit faster. So each round gets faster. And we're going to go ahead and add a level counter and cool stuff like that. So yeah, definitely. If you're interested, check out the next video. If not, have fun with your already super awesome game, but you should be interested. Let's add a few features. As always, questions, comments, concerns, ask me below in the comment section. All the assets, again, are in the description, including the code. And if you made something really awesome, you should brag about it and tell me about it. Let's see. Oh, make sure to like, make sure to hit subscribe. It gives me warm fuzzies. It makes me feel good and all that cool stuff. And I'll see you in the next video. Crash. I love it.